Let's have a go at this exam style question. The question says, Figure 1 shows the hormones involved in the menstrual cycle, and then we have a graph showing the hormone levels of different hormones during the cycle. Each line in Figure 1 represents a hormone labelled 1, 2, 3 and 4. Draw a line from each hormone to connect to the correct line, and the hormones we have are progesterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone and estrogen. Now there's quite a lot of information in that graph, so let's start by having a closer look at that. So we can see on the graph we've got different lines down here labelled 1 to 4, so each of those lines is representing a different hormone. We've got days of the cycle down here, and then we've got the level of hormones on the y-axis. You might also notice in the background there's a sort of shading here. And you'll probably know from seeing other graphs of the menstrual cycle that this is actually representing the uterus lining. The other thing to point out is that on day 14, there's a line down here, and that's important because that's when ovulation occurs. So I'm just going to write up there, egg, to remind myself that that's when the egg is released. So let's have a look at the different hormones and have a think about what we know about each one so that we can try and figure out which line in the graph is which hormone. So progesterone, remember that's produced by the remains of the follicle after ovulation. So we know its level must rise after day 14. And we also know that progesterone maintains the lining of the uterus. And I can see that line 3 over here, can you see it's got the highest level when the uterus lining is in place, and then once it begins to drop, the uterus lining is actually beginning to fall away. So we can tell from that line 3 must be progesterone, or that's what we think at the moment. So let's just put a little p there. Let's now look at luteinizing hormone. So you should remember that this stimulates the release of an egg from the ovary. And so you'd expect a sudden peak of this hormone just before day 14. So let's have a look at the lines. Can we see any peaking just before day 14? Yes, I think that this line here, can you see it's suddenly peaking and then dropping? So that one is likely to be luteinizing hormone. So that line there is likely to be luteinizing hormone. Now, follicle stimulating hormone, that causes an egg to mature in one of the ovaries, and it also stimulates the ovaries to produce estrogen. So you'd expect higher levels of FSH at the start and the end of the cycle. So if we have a look on the graph, is there any line that's high at the start and the end of the cycle? Yes, I can see this line here is high at the start, then it drops, and then it goes up. So I think that's possibly follicle stimulating hormone. Now we're left with estrogen. So estrogen causes the lining of the uterus to grow. Now I can see line 2, which is our last line that we haven't attributed yet, goes up just before the lining of the uterus gets thicker in the graph. So we can work out this must be estrogen. And I also know that it stimulates the release of luteinizing hormone. And I can see on the graph that the estrogen increases just before the luteinizing hormone. So this confirms to me that it must be the right line. So that one is going to be estrogen. So now I just need to put in my answer. So we've said that progesterone is line 3. And remember, up here it says draw a line. So we must do only one line. And then we said luteinizing hormone was line 4. We said follicle stimulating hormone was line 1. And then that leaves estrogen being line 2. And so you would get 2 marks for having all of those correct.